I'm going to explain about the process of the war from beginning to the end of the war, okay, with this map here. So here this is Pyongyang, our capital, and here is Seoul, the enemy's capital. And there is the 30th parallel like this, which was the demarcation line at that time. So at the beginning of the war, on June the 25th, 1950, the enemy state suddenly invaded our territory and intruded 1 or 2 kilometers. But at that time, our soldiers under the command of the great leader, they frustrated this sudden invasion and went over to the counter-offensive. So on June the 28th, 1950, we liberated Seoul. And later we liberated several areas, and on July the 20th, 1950, we liberated here this city called Daejeon, which was the enemy's provisional capital at that time. And here this is the river Rakdong, which we saw in the painting. Okay, so this is the river Rakdong. So our People's Army crossed this river and finally drove the enemies into these limited areas until September 1950. So from beginning to September 1950, our People's Army could liberate over 90% of whole territory of South Korea and 92% of its population. But from September, the enemies they began to mobilize large forces on the Korean front in order to recover their defeat. So they gathered a lot of ground force, most of the large forces, large troops from America, and also from 15 other countries under the name of UN, including England, Turkey, France, Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, and so on. So with these large troops, they conducted a large-scale landing operation here in Incheon. So the enemies, while attacking along the river Rakdong here, they conducted a large-scale landing operation here in Incheon. So what they intended was to block the way of our retreat, so that they could encircle our main force here in this area and to annihilate them completely. So it was a very difficult situation for our People's Army, and there was also a great disparity between the balance of the two sides at that time, okay, between the enemies and us. Okay. So the great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung, he set forth the new strategic policy at that time, that was to make the retreat, not just retreat, but it was strategic retreat, in order to save the main force who to be encircled here in this area. So at that time, under the command of the great leader, Comrade Kim Il-sung, our soldiers here in Incheon and Seoul, they fought well, and they delayed the enemy's landing operation 14 days in this period, and greatly contributed to the planned retreat of our main force. So our main force could successfully retreat to the north. And at that time, the enemies they occupied several parts of the country, including Pyongyang as well. So on this map, you can see the red lines up there. So those red lines were the final defense lines at that time. So the enemies they intruded up to there where the red lines are. Okay. But even though in such a difficult situation, when we were making the retreat, we prepared well for the new counter-offensive under the command of the great leader. So at that time, here in the enemy's rear, second front was formed, and in the occupied areas, guerrilla units were organized. And at that time, also 12 new divisions were organized in the northern areas of the country. So from October 25th, 1950, our soldiers, together with the Chinese people's volunteers, they began to frustrate the enemy's attack again and went over to the counter-offensive. And in cooperation with the units who were in the enemy's rear and also the guerrilla units in the occupied areas, we liberated all those occupied areas. And until June 1951, we completely drove all those enemies out of the country, again south of 30th parallel. And from then, the front was mainly stabilized on the 30th parallel from June 1951. And from July that year, the enemies they began to suggest about the armistice negotiation. But the main purpose was to gain time for the new offensive behind the scene of this negotiation. So the war lasted 2 more years from then. And finally, on July the 27th, 1953, the enemies they signed the armistice, and the 3-year-long Korean War ended. Okay? I just briefly explained about the process of the war. So is there a question?